When you think of the 80s, you think of the Rubik's Cube, the Walkman, music videos, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and of course Culture Club. It felt like they came out of nowhere, and then they were everywhere. And if you turned on the radio or watched Countdown, there they were with hits like Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?, Karma Chameleon, It's a Miracle, and The War Song, just to name a few. They've enjoyed number one success and have sold more than 50 million albums. And of course, Boy George is the face of and the voice of Culture Club, and has also developed a following as a painter. I spoke with Boy George and asked him how much he cares about what people think of his work.
I think that if you believe in yourself and you back yourself, then no, it doesn't matter as much maybe as it did when I was 19. I think when you start making music, you do it for the kind of purest of reasons, and then you get successful, and then everybody gets involved and starts trying to dictate what you do. People say, oh, we loved you because you're interesting, but then there's a certain point where they just want you to keep repeating yourself. So with the art, I think I have a lot of freedom that maybe I don't have in rock and roll. You know, I didn't become a rock star because I wanted to comply. Or I didn't become a musician because I wanted a 9-to-5 job. You know, I'm not knocking that, but, you know, I enjoy the freedom. I suppose doing the art is a way of not being told what to do, whereas in rock and roll, I think there's more rules now.
Well, let's go back to the early 80s because Culture Club exploded on the music scene. You brought something different and the world latched onto it. How would you describe that time, particularly around 1983 when Colour by Numbers dropped and just, you know, I think every single person in the world bought a copy? What was that time like?
Well, it was, you know, a frenzied time, you know, because, you know, everything was happening so quick. I mean, we were literally, you know, there was a point where, you know, I was very outrageous. I was going to clubs in London. Everybody sort of knew me in London, but people would see me in the daylight and cross the street. And then I became famous, and then they wanted to have my photo, and they wanted to, you know, it was a funny time. It was like, you know, because people to start with didn't really see us getting anywhere. We couldn't get a record deal. Everyone I knew that was in a band was getting signed, and we weren't because people considered me too much. And then one day I got on TV, and that was it. You know, it was TV played a massive role in making us famous. You know, and radio obviously was a big part of it. But the thing that really turned everything was me being on TV and talking. You know, it was like, and actually I've made a joke in my career that people often want to hear me talk rather than hear me sing, you know, because people latched onto my personality. And at a certain point, you know, who I was kind of eclipsed what I was doing. I think I've got a balance now. You know, I think there's a good balance now, but it's taken a long time to get there.
What? You're a bit wiser?
I try to make everything I do fun. So whereas maybe when I was younger, it was like I had to get the gig done and it had to be good before I had a good time. Now I try to make every part of that fun, the rehearsal, getting ready for the show. There's no kind of moment that I want to be unenjoyable. You know what I mean? I don't, you know, I look at it in a very different way now. So I really enjoy everything I do, whether it's doing nothing or doing a massive concert. You know, I feel very kind of relaxed. I talk about this a lot on stage. I feel like I'm in my living room, but I'm obviously more dressed up than I would be at home. And I make a lot of jokes about sort of being Boy George, because what does that mean? You know, I try to kind of be whatever I need to be on stage, and I try to be electrifying, and I try to really engage with the audience. And I often go and see bands and think they should talk more, they should be more personable. Why are you not engaging the audience? Because the songs, you know, are one thing. That's amazing if you've got like great songs and people know the songs. But then if you add what you've learned and your personality to that, I think it just takes the gig to another level. I never want to walk off stage and think they didn't love it. I want them to have the best time they can have.
What does Boy George do on a day off? You know, like it's a Tuesday and you got a day off. You've mentioned the art. What are some of your other hobbies that are outside all of that stuff?
Well, I like walking. I walk a lot. Obviously, London is, you know, sometimes it's sunny. It's not like Australia where you know, because obviously Australia, one of the things about Australia is it's very outsidey. You know, people go out, you've got the beautiful oceans, and you've got like loads of walks. So I do like to be outside in nature. You know, I like to be out in the fresh air. I like walking. But when I'm not sort of working, I'm working. I'm always doing something. I'm always in the studio, or I'm working with other musicians, or I'm doing art, or, making clothes. I just like doing stuff. I don't really think about what I do as a job. I think once you get to the point where what you're doing isn't work, you just really enjoy it in a different way.
That's what we're all chasing, isn't it? Where work is just life and work is just joy. It all just fuses into everything. And like you said, you enjoy every moment, every part of the process. It sounds like
people come up to me a lot, when I'm out in public, and I'm dressed up and I'm out, people come up and they will say, "Oh, I'm sorry to bother you." And I would say, "Why are you sorry? Don't be sorry." If people removed all the sorry, we'd have so much more fun. I always think, like, for me as a Gemini, I like direct action. I like people to come up and say, "Can I take a photograph?" and not apologise. I'm so sorry. I'm like, don't be sorry. I know who I am. And I enjoy it more than I used to. I used to be a bit of a Grinch, like in the 90s. I had a Grinch period. And then I don't know, I think I just kind of changed my attitude towards it. And I decided that when I meet people, I don't want them to walk away and say, "Wasn't he horrible?" I want people to walk away and say, "Wasn't he lovely?" And I think that's a much better position to take in this, in this job that we do, which is all about other people's opinions. So I think it's important to celebrate who you are, as best you can.
Oh, no doubt. You're a delight to talk to, Boy George, and I'm sure listeners are thoroughly enjoying hearing what you have to say. Of course, you've got Culture Club back together. Are you bringing some new Culture Club music to Australia?
We've always done our hits. We've never, ever been on stage and not sung the hits, because they're like your secret weapons. You know what I mean? Those are the things that get the crowd on your side. And then what we do in the live show is, we do some covers. I'm always trying to keep it exciting for ourselves as well. But, you want the audience in your hands. You don't want them bored or distracted. But there's always ways of presenting new songs. So first of all, if you're going to do a new song, it's got to be good. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be recognisable. And I think the way that we write is very familiar, because I grew up with the really classic Burt Bacharach, Motown, good, solid, melodic music. And that's what I try to do. So, whenever we do a live show, it's all about balancing. If you're going to do something new, make sure it's something good. Don't just bore people because you want to be in self-indulgence.
No. A lot of debate about whether 80s was the best or the worst time for music. Where does the 80s stand for music for you? And how would you diagnose the health of music in 2023 around the world?
Well, I think there's always good music. You have to look in different places now. But I think the 80s, it's like, well, I go back to the 70s when I first discovered Bowie. People said, "Oh, it's not real rock and roll, he's wearing makeup." I think even John Lennon said Bowie is just rock and roll with makeup on. But the fact is, classic songwriting has never changed. And the stuff that I grew up with was, sort of, I have to say, the real classic songwriting: Carole King, Joni Mitchell, Dylan, all that stuff, Bowie. And my policy is there's never any excuse for not having a melody. You've always got to have a melody, and you've always got to have something to say. And I think if you've got those two ingredients, you've got the makings of a great song. So I think there's always great writing. And that's what I love. When I went to see Duran Duran the other night, the thing that stood out was they've got so many great songs. And when you're doing a live show, that's what you need. And then you just fit in different things around those things. But those kind of classic songs are your staple, and they're what get people on your side. But there's always good music being made. I think that people care about different things now. The way that we get music is very different. So when I was growing up, you went and bought the record, you walked down the streets with it under your arm so everyone knew that you were a Bowie fan. Whereas now, you get it on your phone. So it's a slightly more impersonal way of kind of receiving music. But there's always great music. Always, always, always.